Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to go through a list of things that have been announced recently that I am overjoyed and ecstatic about, and I know a lot of you are going to be as well if you hadn't already heard the news. If you had, I figured we could come together and be excited with one another. I'm also going to cover a few things that have just recently been released that if you didn't know, you might appreciate the heads up, and then we'll get through some things that I personally am definitely going to be keeping my eyes on and very much looking forward to being released within the next few months. I'm going to go in order of projected release date for all of these things, and we are going to cover a variety of different mediums. So we are going to be looking at video games, we're going to be looking at card games, we're going to be looking at manga and books, and we're actually going to start with manga and books. First, we have Frieren Manga Volume 12, which was released on February 11th. That is now out, obviously. And then we have Ambessa, which is the novel following the character of the same name from the Arcane show, and that was released on February 18th. If you've not jumped on the Frieren bandwagon, I definitely will say that this is very much, and this is how I always describe it, a love letter to the fantasy fan. So if you are somebody who you have seen the hero's journey play out before, but you've always wondered what would the story look like after, that is very much what you're exploring, and it's a lot more melancholy and bittersweet than you might anticipate. This particular story follows an elf character who, after the hero's journey has ended, because she lives so much longer than the people that were within her party, she is now not only experiencing a transition period, but she is also having to watch the people that she was closest to pass away, and she's realizing how much she has taken for granted and how much she does not want to repeat those same mistakes. And you're following her on a new journey, but it also kind of ties together past and present and really explores what life is all about. It's quite beautiful. It's a lovely story, and currently there is one season of the anime out. If you're curious my thoughts a little bit more in depth, I'll have my Frieren playlist linked. But regardless, I do plan to get caught up with the manga soon, and I want to very much get to this 12th volume, so I figured if anybody else like me wants to see what happens after where the show left off and you're not really wanting to have to wait for the second season, we can jump into that. For the Ambessa novel, don't really have probably a whole lot to add to what the title alone indicates, but I am very curious to see more about this character after we got so much about them, but we only really feel like we scratched the surface within season 2, especially of Arcane. So I am very much looking forward to learning more about this character. Because my main channel is about books, I will probably talk about it a little bit there. But if I do any kind of in-depth review, I actually think I'm going to discuss that here, as I feel like it's more suited to what I discuss on this channel. It is obviously related to Arcane, and my Arcane content is primarily here as well. But if you are interested in hearing more about that one, be on the lookout. I'm sure I'm going to be talking about that one soon. Now looking at some things that are projected to be released more so in the summertime. So in the beginning of the year, did a video similar to this where I was discussing things I'm excited about, and I didn't mention Elden Ring Nightreign, even though I posted about it the day it was announced and I was really excited for it. I don't know what's going on. I feel like that's sort of everybody's impression with Nightreign, where it's kind of its own thing. It's kind of a DLC. It's sort of has boss fights from other Souls games, and it's multiplayer, but also timed. It's just different, I think, than a lot of us were expecting, but it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I imagine it's going to be the kind of game that you play with your friends and you're all just yelling at each other the whole time, which I'm very much looking forward to. I think it's going to be a blast. I don't think it's going to be as good as actual full-length games like Elden Ring is, but I am very much looking forward to it. I am also a little nervous, though, that I'm going to get really angry, which I'm sure a lot of us are feeling that as well. Regardless, though, the release date for this one is currently May 30th. Next thing that is anticipated of mine is combining two of my favorite things, and I have been waiting for this, and it is officially coming out in June. The exact release date is currently June 13th, and that date probably already signals to some of you what I'm going to be talking about, which would be the Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering sets. I am so looking forward to this, to a point where I don't want to have to choose which cards I get. I just want them all. I want all of the cards from this. I know I don't talk about Magic the Gathering very often, but I love deck building, and I love trying to figure out how the cards would combine well with each other and what would play well off of something else. if you're curious to know, for when I first started, I just had one of the starter things, and thus I just used whatever it had, which was primarily red and blue. And I didn't really love that combination, so then I started going into shops and finding specific cards that I thought were really cool. And eventually I more so was starting to play white. Then I did more white-blue, because I thought those went together well. And fast forward to today, I actually use all the colors now because there's just too many cards, and I'm like, I like that card. That card would go good with this, but that card is black, and I don't really use black. Well, it's time to get a land card that has black and white. And so I mix up all the colors. It's just not the most strategic choice for a lot of people, but I love it. And I currently really love my angel cards. So if you're curious and you know a lot about Magic the Gathering, that is my cup of tea. But regardless, I'm so looking forward to this Final Fantasy set. A lot of the artwork has been released for it, and it is just so exciting to see concepts or monsters or characters shown across these cards. I now, tying this back to Elden Ring, I have been saying for a really long time to my husband and my friends that we need a Souls or specifically Elden Ring combination with Magic the Gathering, because I can view it already. Dawn probably could be red, and then certainly like Moog could be black, and things like, it's so easy. It feels like it's right there in front of us where it'd be so easy. Renala could be blue. It'd be perfect. It would be so fun, and I feel like it would be the perfect integration into Magic the Gathering because it already kind of fits their general setup, and people already make the most incredible artwork for that game. It would be great. Anyway, the point is, I love Final Fantasy. I can't wait. A little later in the video, we will also be talking about the fact that Avatar: The Last Airbender has had an announcement where it's also going to be collaborating with Magic the Gathering. We'll get there, though, once we get down to that time. But Final Fantasy, Magic the Gathering, I can't wait. I can't wait. Next up, something that was announced during the State of Play, we have the new Lies of P DLC. Specifically, it's called Lies of P Overture, and if I understand correctly, it's actually a prequel of sorts, which is a little different than what you typically see from a DLC, but I'll take it. And the boss fights look incredible. It seems like it's going to add depth to the character, which I feel like is just going to make some of the emotional impacts of the ending that much more impactful, but I don't mind that. I think it's just going to be sad the whole time you're playing. You're gonna be like, oh no. But I loved Lies of P. I thought it was fantastic. I actually did a video where I talked about if you like Lies of P, you might like these other stories and games as well, and I specifically wanted to ensure I wasn't just comparing it to Bloodborne because I know that's everybody's go-to. Lies of P is incredible. Yes, it is obviously wearing its Souls inspiration on its sleeve, but I do think that it does enough on its own to make it unique. I liked the little bits of the story you do get, and I'm excited to see what the DLC has to offer in that regard. Currently, there's not a specific release date. We just have summer 2025. Along with that, for summer 2025, we also have the Blood of Dawnwalker, and this is it would seem, vampire story that is very frightening, and it's made by someone that was very tied to The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. Very notably, if you listen to the trailer, you can hear that it also has people who worked on the music for Witcher: The Wild Hunt working on this game. The story trailer had me intrigued immediately. I don't know too much else as to what you're going to get with the game, but if we're basically taking the grittiness combined with fantastic storytelling that we got in Witcher, then I fully trust that within a different setting. It seems like the setting itself doesn't seem all that different. Also, where vampires or some kind of vampire-like being plays a huge role in terrorizing the civilization, but you find a character that ends up becoming entrenched in their affairs based off of some things that I think we're getting from the story trailer. I'm very much looking forward to it. I have loved The Witcher 3 for years, so the idea of getting something new from them as opposed to something like Cyberpunk, which I know was made by CD Projekt Red and there were other people involved, but that was such a shift, and I think that made sense that you didn't want to do something that was identical, but I have wanted to come back to something that maybe was similar but unique enough for the creators of The Witcher 3. So I am very much excited to see how that plays out within The Blood of Dawnwalker. Another one whose release date is to be announced, drastically different from the two games that I just mentioned. It is called Darwin's Paradox, and this seems to be more of a side-scroller type of game. There are parts of the way that the trailer plays out that feels like Ori. There's one specific part that reminded me of Ori and the Blind Forest. So I, for that alone, am intrigued. I also just miss side-scrollers and complex side-scrollers. So I definitely think that that alone has me intrigued, but also it does have a sense of whimsy and silliness to it that I think is going to give a lot of us a false sense of security here. I think that the game might end up playing out as more challenging than you might anticipate based off of how cute it looks, somewhat like the Great Master Challenge of Astrobot, but I don't know. Obviously, I haven't played it just yet. Now getting into some Avatar The Last Airbender news. So there has been an announcement that Avatar The Last Airbender is going to be collaborating with Magic the Gathering. The release date for that is projected for November 21st of this year. I'm very excited, just like what I was saying about what I would love to see if we were ever to get some kind of Elden Ring tie-in to Magic the Gathering and how that would be, I think, pretty seamless. I don't know if you get more seamless than Avatar The Last Airbender and Magic the Gathering, given the very nature of how you even play cards. It'll be so fun to see. I'm also very curious to see how they tie in what I personally think is more of their unique art style with an art style that doesn't match them whatsoever. That's the only part that's not that similar, but it doesn't even matter. I'm excited for it. I love that we're seeing more of these things incorporated into it and tied together. Just worlds collide. But speaking of Avatar: The Last Airbender, there has been a new Nickelodeon announcement that we are going to be getting a new show called Avatar: The Last Airbender 7 Havens, and it's projected for 2026. I believe there are already some announcements as to how long it's going to be as well, so it seems very much solidified that this is going to happen. So glad that we're not doing another live action. I'm so glad that we're doing another actual animated show. I haven't watched Korra yet, so this might give me the push to finally watch Korra, read some of the novels within this world, and then get entirely ready for Seven Havens. I am very excited about this though. And the last couple of things are some other video game announcements. One of them would be the new Onimusha game. I played some of the games in this franchise as I was a kid. The first one to me was always my favorite. And in some ways, this new one looks like it's sort of a return to some of the combat from that, but of course with enhanced technology and graphics, and like they're going to incorporate more intricacies into the gameplay itself. The projected release year for this one just says 2026, so it'll be a while, but I'm going to absolutely be keeping my eyes out for that one, and we are supposedly following the character that we also follow within Vagabond, so that'll be really exciting to see. And then last for today, and probably the most filled with spectacle trailers that I have seen in a long time, we have Tides of Annihilation. The release date is to be announced, so we just have the beautiful trailer. In a lot of ways, the actual imagery within what looks to be the cutscenes versus the actual gameplay, I've seen other people make various comparisons as to what this reminds them of, but for me, this reminds me of Final Fantasy 16. I think Final Fantasy 16 was, for some people, almost too much spectacle and not necessarily enough when it comes to the RPG elements that are expected of a Final Fantasy game or of just RPGs in general. Instead, it felt more like an action game with these really massive boss fights in the form of the icon fights. I really enjoyed 16. As far as the fun I had playing it as a game, it's not necessarily my favorite of the franchise, but the way that the combat looks, if you compare it to Final Fantasy 16, I think they look similar. And of course, you have these massive creatures that are shown within the trailer. I think comparisons to God of War also are apt, but I will be curious to see as we get more information about it, just how the combat works and just how much that you really are navigating the environment, because it seems like you're going to be a little bit more interactive with it than the example I gave of Final Fantasy 16. Regardless though, that's it for some things that I am personally very, very excited about. Feel free to expand on anything that I mentioned today, or if you would like to mention some other announcements that you are really looking forward to, feel free to talk about those as well. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later.